Good evening to you. Good morning to you. Good afternoon to you. Wherever you are, whatever time it is. I hope this video finds you well. And I hope that you have a moment to join me for a little bit of slow relaxation. This is Auntie Q. Q. A. S. M. R. And if you've been on my channel before, welcome back. And if you've never joined us here before, welcome. Welcome, lovely people. I think that for me, what is tonight's video, I would like to do a mix of soft spoken and also some whispers. And hopefully we can find the best of both worlds. So, take a moment to get settled. Find yourself in a quiet place and in a comfortable position. And just relax with me for a little bit as I slowly ramble, and as you slowly fall asleep. Don't worry about missing anything. I don't have anything important to say. I'm just gonna ramble for a little bit. I do need to get just a little nap in before I have to leave the hotel in a few hours. I just flew in to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'll be leaving in about 5 hours, but I don't need a long nap because I slept yesterday before I went to work so that I would have time to spend with you in this nice, quiet hotel room. And I have some tea here that I made before I left Minneapolis for work. And as you can see, I've already been drinking it, but I'm excited to tell you a little bit about it, and maybe even listen to the sounds of the tea. And I also found something inside of this room that I think might make some nice sounds. And hopefully it does. Hopefully you can enjoy this video and tune out while you tune in. If you just want to listen, go ahead and listen. But if you'd like, I can also do some gentle hand movements throughout, if you would like to follow along with that as well. Now, this is literally just the little bag that gets placed inside of the ice bucket in pretty much all hotel rooms, and I discarded it off to the side as I took the ice bucket and flipped it upside down on top of an upside down trash can on top of the coffee table in this room, upon which I have perched you for this evening's MacGyver hotel tripod. But don't worry, you're nice and secure. I also rated the coffee station for the cups, and I placed a nice backing of coffee cups on top of the upside down ice bucket, on top of the upside down trash can, on top of the coffee table, so that there would be no way for you to fall. So that'll work out just fine. and I'm sitting here on the couch, and I moved the lamp from behind me in this corner to just in front of me so that I could have this lighting. And I turned off the lamp by the bedside so that it wouldn't be too much lighting. Hopefully, it's not too much light. But I apologize if it is. And hopefully, if you do want to watch the visual ASMR, finger tracing, and the pluck, plucking, then you can turn down the brightness a bit. Just turn it down a little bit on your phone screen or your laptop or your iPad or your tablet, whatever that you are joining us with today. Hopefully you had a stress-free day. I really do hope that you did. And if you didn't, I applaud you for taking this moment for yourself to try to make it better. That's very admirable. Sometimes days are long and they're stressful and they can kind of get you down, and it's all too easy to stay down and end on a low note. But you're here instead, trying to find a moment for yourself to hopefully transition into some deep sleep and a better tomorrow. So, thank you for choosing this channel and for choosing me, and I hope that I can help you with that. Something that, for me, always helps when I'm feeling a little bit of stress is some lovely tea. I just love tea. And you can see, perhaps, why I like it so much. I think it's very beautiful. That you have these leaves that come all from one plant. It doesn't matter if it's green tea, if it's white tea, if it's yellow tea, if it's oolong tea, or if it's black tea, all of it comes from the same plant. And just by the way that it is processed, dried, aged, fermented, steamed, all the different degrees is how you achieve all of the different teas. And to turn it from one single source plant, Camellia sinensis, it takes a lot of time and a lot of care to transform it. And I think that's lovely to think about the tea and its little journey. For example, this tea I got some tea leaves in my mouth. This tea that I am drinking, well, first of all, I bought it in Paris at one of my favorite tea stores, one that I cannot pronounce because I do not speak French, but I'll try, and hopefully my shortcomings in pronunciation can provide you with a laugh. The tea store is Mariage Fresh. Married brothers, and they have several locations throughout Paris. They have locations in Japan and maybe elsewhere. But it's a joy for me to go every time that I'm in Paris for work. I always go. So drinking any of my teas that I've purchased from Mariage Fresh brings me its own moment of joy, because it's a fond memory. Not to mention the tea itself it's beautiful and it's high quality, and it's fragrant, and it's a loose leaf, full leaf tea, and I sit and I smell them and I pick them out and I select which ones that I'm going to take home for my collection. And this one is from my most recent trip. This one is called Smoky Nara, and it is from Japan, and it is a smoked black tea. So the tea leaves were picked from from the Camellia sinensis plant, and they were processed via fermentation in order to become a black tea for starters, which increases the caffeine level and the bold flavor notes come out. But then once it was formed, processed, treated to become a black tea, raised and nurtured to become a black tea, it was then smoked. Smoked teas like the Chinese lapsang soshang, which I may also be pronouncing incorrectly. Lapsang soshang. Lapsang soshang. Another kind of smoked black tea are some of my particular favorite black teas because I do love those smoky flavor notes. And this one is smoked with oak wood from Japanese whiskey barrels. I don't have any Japanese whiskey. I've tried Japanese whiskey, and I know that it's heralded for its quality and is coveted by whiskey collectors. And some do come at quite a high price. So, while I don't have that, I do have a tea smoked with oak from Japanese whiskey barrels. And the flavor is so smooth, incredibly smooth, and the smokiness is not overbearing. It is entirely notable and noticeable. I would say it is very present in the flavor profile of this tea, but it's so pleasant. And I cold brewed this tea overnight last night. I prepared it when I got home, and I don't know the exact volume of this container. I upcycled this. I can't remember, but I think that it was a bottle of either vinegar or sparkling wine from Trader Joe's. And I just love these little, I don't know what this type of latch is called, but I am a big fan of bottles with this type of thing on the top. I don't know why, but I like it. So I decided that I would keep the glass bottle, and I took the label off. So I don't know what the volume is of this container, and obviously I could quite easily figure that out so that I could know exactly how much tea to put in here for my preference, which is usually 1.5 teaspoons of tea per 8 ounces of water. Now, these tea leaves have expanded because they are full tea leaves and they have been soaking for quite some time. But they took up much less volume when I first put them in the bottle. So if I had to estimate, I probably put about, I think, 6 to 8 teaspoons of tea in the bottle, and then I rather messily took a shallow, small wooden spoon that I actually bought. Are you ready for this? The spoon that I used to put honey in this bottle, because you know I love spoons. Look at my spoon ring. And I don't know if I've told you this, but I have a miniature spoon collection. Rather vast miniature spoon collection. So I know a thing or two about spoons. I like spoons. So when I was in North Carolina in the past for work, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. Excuse me, I get the two mixed up. I'm in Charlotte right now. But one of the last times I was here for work, I was in Charleston, North Carolina, which is actually one of my top very favorite domestic layovers, because Charleston is just so stinkin' cute. I had no idea about Charleston before I came here for work the last time. I didn't know anything about North Carolina, and I didn't even really have any preconceptions about it. And yet, when I got to Charleston, I was still so pleasantly surprised to find such an incredibly cute town. It's just makes you feel all cozy. It's quaint. It's colorful. It's got all of these shops in it that gave me the impression that it's definitely first and foremost a vacation destination, and secondly that it gave me the impression that if you lived in Charleston, you were probably of retirement age. And I'll explain why that is. It's because so many of the shops in Charleston that I encountered don't necessarily sell staple items. They sell the kind of things that you buy, number one, on vacation, and number two, with surplus income. Perhaps, say, retirement income. Because the kind of shops that I saw there were, for example, an entire store that only sold honey. Just honey. Just different kinds of honey. And that's it. And there was a store that sold just handmade soaps. And I get that, Lush exists, but they sell more than just soap. They sell their, the trendy bath bombs and shower jellies and skincare and all natural products. This store only sold soap. Bar soap. Which is great, but it's not necessarily the thing that most of us are looking to pick up during our weekly shopping. But there's nothing wrong with that. I love Charleston. And when I was there, one of the shops that I visited was a store that sold tea and spices. And of course I bought tea. I actually bought one of the best oolong teas that I've had in a while there. I think it was called the Iron Goddess of Mercy, and it is just creamy and smooth and toasty and the closest approximation to an old tea that I used to love back when the store Tivana was still in business and I worked there. You may remember Tivana. It was a high quality tea store for loose leaf tea and tea products like tea accessories, water heating dispensers, and just so lovely. And really the only of its kind at the time in the United States for purchasing loose leaf tea. But it was also a place where you could get educated about loose leaf tea. All of the employees that I worked with were passionate about it and were equally as interested in helping you purchase teas for yourself as we were telling you all about the teas. And that was something that I loved to do. Take the teas off the shelf and open the large container and waft the fragrance toward you with the lid so that you could smell and experience the fragrance and the visual beauty of the teas. And during every customer interaction, they'd either ask me what is my favorite tea, or I would somehow work it in. Because it was such a joy for me to talk about this tea, I would ask them, may I show you my favorite tea? My favorite teas are oolong teas, and especially if they were new to tea, most people in the United States are only familiar with bagged tea and black tea at that. So they would come in and they would learn about loose leaf tea and loose leaf preparation and the benefits and the quality. And they would, more often than not, if they were that kind of first time educating themselves kind of customer, they would go with a black tea, something they know. And I love black teas. Like I said, I've got one right here. But an oolong tea is the tea that you arrive to just one step before black tea in the processing of teas. Teas that are simply dried are white teas. Teas that are dried and perhaps steamed or a little bit roasted are green teas. Oolong teas are a little bit fermented. Black teas are further fermented and perhaps aged, perhaps smoked. But as far as that lineage, that development is concerned, black teas and oolong teas are just side by side, side by side, side by side. So, if you're used to the bold, rich, developed flavor of a black tea, you probably don't want the very next tea that you try to be a green tea. Because green teas, while when high quality, still retain a very smooth and creamy, buttery flavor note to them. They are much more vegetal, and that's not always everyone's favorite. But if you're used to a black tea and you try an oolong tea, I think that you'll find a pleasant similarity between the because an oolong tea is still bold and well developed in its flavor, but it's a bit lighter, so you may be able to pick up on more dimension to the flavor. That's not to say that black teas are one note. This one right here is a whole evolvement. That's not a word. It has an entire evolution of flavors as you enjoy it. But most of those flavors do tend to be on the richer side. You got the smoky, the hefty, roasty, fermented flavor. But an oolong tea, while still having one foot firmly planted in that kind of robustness, on the other hand, you'll find creaminess, butteriness, toastiness, floral notes. So that brings me back to my favorite tea when I worked at Tivana. It was an orchid oolong tea. So while the tea was drying, it was layered with orchid flowers. It had no artificial flavoring or fragrance. It was dried together with flowers. And I love orchid oolong teas. They are my favorite. Lightly floral, very smooth, creamy, and toasty. But the thing about my favorite tea at Tivana, and it was called Monkey Picked Oolong. Monkey Picked Oolong. And it was called that because as a high quality tea, it is only made using the first bud and 2 leaves at the very, very end of the branch of tea. And they're tea trees, so the branches extend, and high quality tea is only using the first bud and 2 leaves at the very, very end of that branch. And tea is grown in elevation as well. So legend has it that back in the olden days, they would train monkeys, nimble little monkeys, to swing from tree to tree so that they could more easily harvest and pluck, 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 pluck that first bud and 2 leaves. So my favorite oolong tea at Tivana that I liked to show my customers was Monkey Picked Oolong. And the thing about it, it's characteristic that I would get so excited about was the smell. And no, it did not smell like orchid. It actually smelled like a new book. I know that sounds crazy, but I promise you, it smelled like a new book. And I would say, with a big smile, can I show you my favorite tea? It's monkey picked oolong, and it smells like a new book. And I would waft the fragrance toward you, and you would go, wow, that does smell like a new book. And I think that's just delightful. But time went on, and we no longer have Tivana storefronts. And I've ever since been searching for that same tea. And to bring it back to what I was talking about, that oolong tea that I bought from the store in Charleston is quite a close approximation to that old tea. So, naturally, I quickly drank all of it, and I've been needing to go back to Charleston so that I can get more. Now, to bring it back to what I was saying before about spoons. The spoon that I used to kind of scrape and push and work just a little bit of raw crystallized white honey into the narrow neck of this bottle for my tea was a spoon that I purchased in Charleston. It was a little set of wooden spoons, very narrow and delicate and hand carved, and each of them stained in a different color. One of them is sort of an ash gray brown. Another was red cherry wood type of color. The third was brown, and the fourth and final was black. And come to think of it, they're not stained. They're actually made from 4 different kinds of wood, and the handle goes from about here to here, quite long and narrow and slender and straight, but not perfectly straight. So it captures the striations, the grain of the wood, and it has that organic feel to it. And the spoon part is probably about yay big, and the scoop, I don't know the proper terminology, and I should, because I know spoons, but the scoopy part is pretty shallow and flat, and I just thought they were so dainty, and I loved them. So anyway, I used one of those spoons to work some honey into this tea that I've enjoyed today. I can really ramble on, can't I? It's already been more than just a little bit of time, and I do need to get myself a little bit of a nap. But hopefully you're already fast asleep. hopefully you enjoyed this video. And hopefully I will see you next time. But for now,